Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our last episode of Season 1 Behind the Counters. Today, we're going to discuss things pharmacy student can do to promote mental health awareness. And here today, joined me is Chris, who is the president of American Association of Psychiatric Pharmacists, also known as AAPP, at the USC student chapter. How are you doing, Chris?
Hey, hello everyone. I'm doing well. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm doing well too. I'm glad that you can come on today and we can have a good discussion about this topic. And all right, without further ado, let's get this started. So, starting off, Chris, would you like to just briefly describe about your pharmacy journey so far to the audience?
Sure. So I would like to start by saying that my name is Chris Tran, and I am a third year pharmacy student at the USC Alfred E. Mann School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences, formerly known as the USC School of Pharmacy. I am also the student chapter president of the American Association of Psychiatric Pharmacists at USC, and abbreviated as AAPP USC. So my pharmacy school journey really began in high school. In high school, my parents suggested the medical field, specifically pharmacy, to me. At the time, I didn't know that there were other kinds of pharmacists out there besides those you would see at an independent retail or community pharmacy. I would sometimes join my parents in picking up their prescriptions, most often at our local independent pharmacy. To this day, my parents still go there because of the good relationships that they have with their pharmacist and technician. And then after high school, I started my college career at a community college named Santa Ana College. I took the required courses to transfer to UC Irvine and then graduated from Santa Ana College with an Associate of Science degree in chemistry. After 3 years there, and then upon transferring to UCI, where I majored in pharmaceutical sciences and minored in psychology and social behavior, I was glad to have found a student organization that would help me learn more about pharmacy and the pharmacy school application process. I was a general member of the Pre-Pharmacy Society, PPS, at UCI, attending and volunteering for events when I had the time. And it was specifically the NorCal trip in 2018 over spring break that I had heard from a pharmacist who introduced herself as a psychiatric pharmacist. And this led me to realize that there were other pharmacist job opportunities out there. And so since high school, I've had a strong interest in psychology and psychiatry. And just as a fun fact, the AP psychology exam was the only one that I had passed with the high score of 5. I was really proud of myself for this. I graduated from UCI in early 2020 and then started pharmacy school later that year. My first year of pharmacy school was basically all virtual due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I would only come to campus for in person skills training for vaccine administration, health screenings, and compounding. And then now I'm here as a third year pharmacy student.
Sounds great. The funny thing is, I also did the AP zone back in high school, and my high school didn't even offer any AP psychology class, so I wasn't able to take anything similar. But that was great to hear. Describing how your journey looks like. I actually didn't know you had a minor in when you're at UCI in psychology and social behavior. And I guess that definitely contributed to what you're looking forward to in terms of career development stuff.
Yes, I'm very fascinated by like human behavior.
That's great. And I looking back in your pharmacy journey, right? You're currently now a P3. And when you got into USC, how did you get interested in joining AAPP, and who introduced you to the organization?
I love that question. So AAPP is like something I'm really passionate about. It was formerly known as the College of Psychiatric and Neurologic Pharmacists, CPNP. And again, it's a student organization whose mission is to promote mental health and the profession of psychiatric pharmacy. And I discovered this org from a friend at USC. Actually, she was an incoming second year pharmacy student and a board member of CPNP USC. And because I knew that I wanted to possibly do psychiatric pharmacy and help fight the stigma of mental illness, I decided to join CPNP as a first year pharmacy student. I have been actively involved with the organization since. I first became the level 1 representative and then president elect before going into my current position of president.
That's very cool. I actually know a lot of psychiatric pharmacists who's still not used to the AAPP name. They're like, oh, there's too much A's and P's in pharmacy orgs,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's for sure. And one funny thing is that I think, um, having this organization really, I think, does it expose the realm of psychiatric pharmacists to students a lot, or does it also serve as any sort of like organizations to not only again help students, pharmacy students out there understand what psychiatric pharmacy is, but also the focus on what mental health awareness within healthcare.
Yes, I think it exposes students well to the idea of psychiatric pharmacy. And you don't necessarily have to be interested in psychiatric pharmacy to be a part of AAPP. Specifically, you just need to like maybe have some kind of interest in like raising mental health awareness and like having interest in fighting the stigma. I think that's what really matters as a member of AAPP.
Actually, thank you again for the answer, but I want to go back to your description of your NorCal trip when you're part of PPS at UCI when you were a UCI undergrad. Do you know the name of that psychiatric pharmacist who you met by any chance?
Unfortunately, I do not, but it was at the California North State um, College of Pharmacy. It was in like near San
Yeah.
Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah, I was just curious because there's a very funny thought that I felt a little bit different because what I heard from a lot of pharmacists or pharmacy students, like they're trying like always having difficulties to reach out to psychiatric pharmacists because there's not that much.
Mm.
But in the other hand, like from my own experience, I actually get to know like a portion of my pharmacists that I know are actually psychiatric pharmacists, and that was just certainly a little bit interesting to me as well. Like it's like, oh, how did I came across that? So I was just interested who you got to interact with and like discover about this field.
Yes.
So yeah, moving on. Again, going back to what AAPP offers, what are some examples of activities and events that the chapter hosts that pharmacy students can participate in?
Great question. So each year the events can kind of vary. However, to like name a few, our USC student chapter does hold annual events such as the naloxone training workshop, suicide prevention training workshop, career day, and psychiatric pharmacy residency workshop. This past year's naloxone training workshop, we trained over 200 students on how to recognize an opioid overdose and administer the Narcan nasal spray. Naloxone use and suicide prevention are only briefly discussed in our pharmacy school curriculum. So, our chapter is really glad to host events for students to further their knowledge and awareness of issues related to substance use and mental health. Some new events that I could mention that AAPP USC hosted this year were the mental health screening training workshop, where students learned how to screen individuals for depression and anxiety using validated assessment tools, the depression workshop, and the harm reduction workshop, where students learned about key harm reduction principles.
Wow, that is actually really cool. First of all, again, I like all these activities that you have, like exposure, and even like these activities don't only enhance the student's experience in understanding what like psychiatric pharmacy is, but also like already can help the student to be part of the solution towards something that's very big, such as the opioid crisis, right? Would you mind speaking a little bit more about like the details of the naloxone training or any projects that you have a chance to work on in terms of lowering barriers to naloxone access and such?
Yes. So, fortunately, through AAPP USC, formerly CPP USC, a special project that I've had the chance to work on since its launch in April 2021 is Naloxone SC, which is a peer-led harm reduction program founded by members and a board-certified psychiatric pharmacist. I have been involved with this program since I was the level one representative for CPP USC. And again, through this program, both undergraduate and graduate students at USC can pick up a free naloxone kit with fentanyl test strips at the USC Student Health Center locations. To pick up an naloxone kit is relatively simple. Students are asked to watch a 10-minute training video on our Naloxone SC website or attend our naloxone training workshop, which we host annually. Complete a quick knowledge quiz with a 100% and fill out an attestation form. To date, over 400 kits have been distributed and over 600 students have been trained through the Naloxone SC program. Given the ongoing opioid epidemic and its rising death toll, the program serves to educate students on how to prevent a fatal opioid overdose from occurring through the use of naloxone and fentanyl test strips. And a recent accomplishment of mine and my new director of naloxone distribution is the manuscript that got accepted in the Journal of American Pharmacists Association, or JAPHA. And the title of this article is Lowering Barriers to Naloxone Access Through a Student-Led Harm Reduction Program. It talks about how the program started and the accomplishments that followed. If anyone's interested, I would highly encourage reading the brief report. In doing so, it could help other college campuses or entities to prevent opioid overdose and reduce stigma, and hopefully help them establish a similar program like ours.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, by the way. I think recently there's a law passed that requires sorry, in California. I don't remember exactly what the bill's code is, but it was a law that passed that require all student health centers of California public schools required to have some sort of naloxone access within their student health centers. And I think it's also recommended, highly recommended for UCs. So I know actually, since I also worked at the UCI Student Health Center, I think we are working on something similar as well. Although we have always have that, actually don't have. I don't we don't see that much patients that has like the 100% necessary need, but it's always good to, have access before, like when someone has a when someone goes through the withdrawal symptoms, or anyone who overdosed on any sort of opioid, it's good to have some backup. So I think it's definitely very special from what you created there, Chris, with USC.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's good that you brought that up. And naloxone is really similar to like having a fire extinguisher in hand. You never know when you will need it, so it's just good to have on hand.
Yeah. Okay. So you know, further emphasis on, now you're P3, you're about to go into API rotations. Is there any particular rotations you're thinking like, maybe I could look out for to like apply what I've learned from all these activities and think about, or any like kind of rotation that you're excited for that will help you go through?
So I wish I was assigned to a rotation that was just focused on psychiatric pharmacy, but I didn't get placed in one. However, a rotation that I am looking forward to is going to be at the VA Long Beach. That's where I'm going to have my general medicine slash acute care rotation. Hopefully I'll be able to see a lot of like different disease states and like help, and those will help me develop the clinical skills and knowledge to be a well-rounded practitioner. That is related to like my future goal as a pharmacist.
All right, moving on. What are some things that you believe future pharmacists should learn about in helping patients with mental health difficulties while in pharmacy school?
Again, great question, Ryan. So I believe that future pharmacists, while in pharmacy school, should learn about the stigma of mental health or mental illness, suicide prevention, and harm reduction, as I have mentioned previously. Learning how to communicate with patients with mental health difficulties is extremely important. As saying things like "you are so OCD" can actually add to the stigma. We should be communicating in such a way that recognizes the patient as a person with a mental health condition. And it might not seem like a big deal at first, but I think that people often fail to realize that patients with severe mental illness are dealing with enough as it is. There's also the stigma of taking psychiatric medications So, as future pharmacists, we should do our best to educate our patients on the importance of these medications, along with healthy habits and lifestyle modifications if possible. Regarding suicide prevention, it can seem like a daunting task, especially when you don't know what to say to the person. Um, or who may be experiencing suicidal or experiencing a crisis, as you might learn in a suicide prevention training. Asking directly to the person can actually help them. It won't really push them to die by suicide, which is often the misconception. Oftentimes, they just want to be heard and listened to. So don't be afraid to ask whether or not someone or a patient is thinking about suicide. Future pharmacists should be able to recognize the warning signs of suicide in any field that they work in. And in terms of harm reduction, which is my last point, I think that older generations of pharmacists and other healthcare providers might view abstinence from dangerous drugs as like the only solution to having reduced deaths and reduced healthcare utilization costs. However, in today's society, educating individuals on the safe use of these drugs can result in more benefits and positive outcomes. We all know that recovery from an addiction is unfortunately not an easy feat, and overall, having more pharmacists who are knowledgeable in mental health and harm reduction is important to help patients with mental health conditions.
Great conclusions, and I couldn't emphasize on the stigma. I believe that, even in like a pharmacy setting, sometimes um, it is a learning curve for all of us to really understand the needs of a certain patient and not to try to, maybe especially comes to mental health conditions, to potentially stigmatize by using incorrect terms, such as something that you just described. And I think it's very important. And I think one of the prime examples actually just kind of like relates to uh, my patient group when I was working, is with patients who are diagnosed with ADHD. They're on some sort of amphetamines, or like, your likes of Adderall, Vyvanse. And in this current market, there's always a shortage of anything in the community setting, and it comes to the point where, yes, there might be sometimes it is definitely, I would say it's definitely a challenging thing where, you're at sometimes at that 50-50 point where, like, you really really want to help that patient, but you also want to make sure that you're using the correct terms and being sincere with them, and making sure that their compliance with their medication, and to reduce potential abuse or anything like that as well. So I think that's definitely a very important point to take, and I'm sure that we have recorded this episode now before we're going to record an episode with Dr. Erin Knox, talking about um, her approach in terms of helping mental health patients. And I'm sure that we're going to also discuss a little bit about, stigmatization and how to address patients correctly, and help them correctly. So yeah, I think those are great conclusion points. Again, another emphasis on what you talked about was like, recognizing signs of, and helping patients who might uh, have a intention for any suicide. I think that's also, again, very important, especially as pharmacists, as the most accessible healthcare provider out there. You want to be there to help those patients and to make sure that they are healthy and living a good life. At least try to. And I think, again, that's a very important point. I think, like, I like that you pointed that out, Chris. All right. Last question we have today is, what are your future goals as a pharmacist?
So just to like say it briefly, my future goals as a pharmacist are to pursue a career in psychiatric pharmacy, whether that be inpatient or ambulatory care, and become a well-rounded practitioner. I hope that my APPs and or residency training will help me decide specifically which area I would want to go into. I will be starting my final year API rotations at the end of March, and I hope they will prepare me well for residency applications and provide me with the clinical knowledge and skill set needed to work as a clinical pharmacist.
Good luck with that,
Thank you
Chris.
so much, Ryan.
All right, thank you, Chris, for coming out to the show for our last episode of season 1, Behind the Counters. We look forward to seeing you in the future, and hopefully, you have gained some insight on why we should promote mental health awareness in the pharmacy realm as well as outside the pharmacy realm through the show. Consider these things that you might have learned from the podcast and apply it when you treat your patients, your pharmacy colleagues, your family, your friends, and others. Chris, any last comments for our audience?
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate and value the opportunity to be able to speak in your talk show.
Thank you. Drop a like to the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more content from the Student RX Network, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.